Welcome back to my channel. Tonight's story is about public humiliation, quiet planning, and a lesson that stung long after the laughter died. Title: She humiliated me in front of our friends. I taught her a lesson she will never forget. The evening started like every other Friday at our house. Drinks at 7, friends drifting in, music low enough for conversation. I had spent the afternoon setting up string lights, cleaning the grill, and making sure the playlist had exactly the right songs. Little gestures I thought mattered. By the time guests arrived, my chest felt full in that comfortable way that comes from giving. Emma looked beautiful. She always did. Tonight she wore confidence like perfume. It was the kind of confidence that turns heads, and sometimes I was learning hide sharp edges. The group was small and close, people who had seen us at our best and worst. We laughed, toasted, moved from topic to topic. First everything was normal. Then, as the wine loosened tongues and the backyard darkened, I noticed eyes glancing at Emma more than they glanced at me. She started it with a joke. A small one, tossed like a pebble into conversation. "Mark still thinks he can fix the sink himself." Laughter rippled. I smiled politely, thinking she was playing at our private jokes. A few minutes later she pushed it further. When we moved in, he couldn't even hang a picture straight. I had to show him how. More laughs. A couple of friends winked awkwardly. Daniel from work smirked, one of those smirks that sits on a face like it belongs there. What should have been gentle teasing turned sharp. One barb after another, each more public than the last. She teased my job, my cooking, the way I held the baby. People laughed like it was scripted. I felt the air change. My guests weren't laughing at my flaws. They were laughing at my humiliation. I could have interrupted. I could have pulled her aside. I could have ruined the night by shouting, by making the scene she'd secretly wanted to provoke. I didn't. I watched instead as she built a small, roaring fire with other people's amusement. Watching her try to impress others by burning me was worse than the words. It was the way she leaned into it, the tiny pleasure in her face as heads turned. That was the part that lodged like a splinter. I stayed calm. Calm is not surrender. It's the preparation before action. After the last guest left and the yard grew quiet, I did the obvious. I went to bed. Pretend sleep. Let the morning start the blame game. Let the guilt wear off or sharpen. I let nothing show. Next morning I made coffee. I made it exactly how she liked it. I set 2 mugs on the table and waited. She walked in, face bright from sleep, hair a mess in the best way. She smiled like nothing had happened. I returned the smile the way a surgeon returns the scalpel. Precise, contained. "Rough night?" I asked casually. "What?" "No. It was fun." She paused, sensing a chill. "You okay?" "You looked quiet." "Perfectly fine." I sipped my coffee. "By the way, do you remember when you said my projects are never finished? That was hilarious." She blinked. "It was a joke, Mark. Don't be dramatic." I set my cup down. I loved the jokes last night, especially the part where everyone laughed about me. It gave me an idea for a small surprise. She laughed, wary now. "What are you talking about?" "Finish your coffee. We're going to church." Her laugh died. "Church? Seriously?" "Yes." I stood and walked to the shelf where we kept the photo albums. I pulled out one I hadn't touched in years, our wedding album. I opened it calmly, flipped to a photo of the 2 of us at the reception, faces lit, hands clasped. I turned the album so she could see. She frowned. "Okay. Remember that night?" I asked. "You looked at me that way. I thought I'd won your heart." She shifted. "Mark, stop. This isn't the time." "There's never a time for disrespect," I said. "I want our friends to remember you the way you were then, not as someone who shrinks her man to shine herself." She took a step back. "What are you doing?" I walked to the garage and came back with a small box of framed photos I'd printed the night before. I had been quiet, but I hadn't been idle. Each frame was a candid. Emma laughing with friends, Emma with Daniel, Emma mid-joke, the moment she mouthed something that looked suspicious. I had captions printed, dates, times, the tiny messages that made the truth clear without my voice raising. I set the frames on the table, one by one, with the same slow patience I'd used to build a life. Then I called a few of our closest friends and asked them to drop by for coffee and a chat. I told them nothing more than that I wanted to share a memory. They arrived puzzled. Emma tried to intercept them with forced jokes, but the room had shifted. I stood, motioned for attention, and said in my calm voice, "I want to show you something from last night." I turned the photos one at a time. No commentary. No accusations. Just the images, the timestamps, the messages saved, the small betrayals frozen in pixels. The room fell quiet in a way only truth can make quiet. Eyes moved from frame to frame. Conversations that had once been loud and easy now sat heavy like wet clothes. Emma's mouth opened. No sound came out. Her friend's expressions moved from amusement to awkward concern. Daniel's smirk evaporated. The man who had chuckled the night before now looked like someone who had swallowed ice. "Mark," Emma began, trying to shape a defense, but every sentence didn't land. Her laughter from the night before found nothing to cling to. Humiliation turned inward. I didn't shout. I didn't make demands. I let the evidence speak. Lessons taught in silence last longest. When the last friend left, Emma was left with every frame and every message. She tried to apologize, voice small and jagged. I listened. Then I walked to the hallway, picked up my coat, and gave her the same calm line I'd used with her before. "You humiliated me because you wanted applause. I taught you a lesson because you needed to see who you cost us. I won't be part of a life where I am the punchline." She reached for me, but I stepped back. "Remember this feeling," I said. "Not for revenge, but for change." I left the house without slamming doors. I left with the quiet dignity of someone who'd taken back respect without losing his head. That evening, as I sat alone in a borrowed room and felt the ache of what had been, I realized that some lessons are like seeds. They bruise when planted, but if tended, they grow into something better. Emma learned hers the hard way. It would be weeks before she spoke to me the same way. It would be months before our dinners were free of the tight laugh she used to throw my way to win a stranger's smile. She had wanted attention. I gave her clarity. The cost was hers to bear. Some moments in life demand a measured answer. Loud revenge is satisfying for a heartbeat. Quiet consequence reshapes a lifetime. Thanks for watching. Subscribe and like the video for more stories like this.